I don't want to subvert the system. What I want to do is see more and more NGOs have youth leaders involved in them, as well as the United Nations. Because let me make this point, that at least in my country, in the United States, there are over 1.3 million NGOs, 990,000 of them with budgets under $25,000 per year. Which leads me to ask the first question, what's the impact of such numerous small NGOs, and isn't it also kind of dilettante to think you need to create your own NGO when another might already exist and have the same aging leadership that we find at the UN? So getting involved with civil society and nonprofits, as we call them in the United States, or non-governmental organizations, can also lead you into the United Nations, and it's as important to bolster and cooperate with them rather than to merely form new NGOs than as it is in terms of finding ways to be a part of the NGO structure as it is.
Let me take the second question myself. The question was about the Millennium Development Goals and about the role of youth. And this is an important question, and it's even more important for you in Vancouver to understand exactly what is happening in the world. The first point is that despite any information that may be given to you to the contrary, poverty is increasing in the world. It is not decreasing. We fudge figures by using China in order to cook our books. But China is pulling itself up by its own bootstraps, not with the help of the international system. And if you take China out of the exercise, poverty is increasing everywhere. It's increasing in Asia, it's increasing in Africa, it is increasing in Latin America, it is increasing in Eastern Europe, and to some extent, it is increasing even in the United States. So poverty is a major problem. Poverty is defined as earning less than $2 a day. Abject poverty is defined as less than $1 a day for everything, for your food, for your clothes, for your shelter, for your medicines, for your education, for your opportunities. So poverty is not shortage of money, it is shortage of opportunity. And we are absolutely sure that it is a compelling problem in the world of today. In fact, there is no comparison between the impact of poverty and the impact of all the other crises of the world combined. That being said, the answer to poverty was an agreement that we had 40 years ago, which is called the 0.7% Compact, in which all the countries at the United Nations, all agreed that they would put 0.7% of their gross domestic product, 0.75%, in a basket on the table to be used for development. That was the consensus agreement in 1970. Against that agreement, the actual amount which has been disbursed is only 0.25%, meaning 1/3 of what was promised. And that is not enough. If you don't put enough sugar in your coffee, it's not going to be sweet. And it's as simple as that. You cannot have development with 0.25% being put in the developmental funds basket. And so that brings me then to the MDGs themselves. Please note that the MDGs represent the lowest common denominator in a meeting of heads of state, and who could only agree on X number of goals and targets. But there are two very important MDGs which are missing from that list, and you must focus on them. The first is job creation. There is nothing in the MDGs about job creation. And without job creation, as we know from the whole crisis in the world today. Without job creation, you're going to get nowhere. And the second missing MDG is disarmament. We are spending $1 trillion a year on armaments, and much more than that on actual wars. And that money, if it was used for disarmament, for development, would change the face of the world. But there is not a word about disarmament in the Millennium Development Goals. So take the Millennium Development Goals with a pinch of salt. But that being done, once again, you are the youth. You are the people who can analyze this better than people like me. And so sit back, analyze, and arrive at your conclusions as to how you can put pressure either to increase the bank of funding for development, or to create jobs in a world which is increasingly globalized and globalizing. It's no longer possible to hide behind borders and to say, I don't care about the rest of the world, because unfortunately we are living in a world in which the interconnections are so great now that anything which happens in one part of the world immediately affects all other parts of the world. And so I'm afraid Vancouver is very much in the eye of the storm where developmental activities are concerned. And you are the main actors, not me. You want to add something, sir?
I think it is important to note this as well, that the Millennium Development Goals were actually a compilation of the major conferences here at UN headquarters in the 1990s. So it came out of those conferences, and I think at that time job creation and disarmament were just not on the radar screen the way they have become later in the 90s, and therefore it may be why we only settled on these 8. Those were the major 8 conferences in the 90s, and for me, I think of the Millennium Development Goals as a declaration of interdependence in the world. Before the question came up of how we are relating to other activities and are we duplicating, we are not the cyber school bus, we are not the model UN. We don't do anything like that. We bring together youth leaders or youth who wish to be leaders and focus on the 8 Millennium Development Goals. That's all the Youth Assembly does. The Youth Assembly finds every which way to permeate those questions of youth leadership and the success of the Millennium Development Goals, including the arts. We also have a UC Peace Arts Festival that takes place during the Youth Assembly with its plenaries, its workshops, its special events. So we're looking at this from all different areas, but we're only looking at youth leaderships and the MDGs. We think this is very important because when I was young, back in the 60s again, we used to have a saying that was, think globally, act locally. And quite honestly, the internet has really propelled that. It has enabled everyone to have their platform so that they can talk about their issues. I think that the paradigm needs to change now, and the Youth Assembly is focused on getting people to think locally and act globally. What is going on in our locality, and how can we work together to create a global answer to this? And I'm leaving later this month for China to look at the issues of vocation and social entrepreneurship. I'll be speaking at a major conference in Nantong, which will look at social entrepreneurship as a new vocation for Chinese youth. But these are all some of the things that we're doing. I also wanted to just show you this. I'm just going to riff this by you. This is online right now. I don't know if I can get it in the camera here. Here it is. This is all of the areas that DESA alone, one of the UN offices, is doing to work. That's the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, to work on youth work with youth on some of the major issues of the day. And it would be important for you to go to UN.org and look at Youth in the United Nations, and you will see this laundry list of important programs around the world where DESA and the United Nations have engaged young people, why they have engaged young people in